Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. This is for July 16th, 2024, episode 220. Stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser Paul Green coming to you live from Yuma, Arizona. Well, and by live, I mean recorded. I was alive when I recorded this, which now since I say that out loud sounds very depressing, as though I'm gonna be, by the time you hear this, I will be dead. Let's not put that out into the universe. Hopefully by the time you hear this, I will be very much alive. But yes, I am doing a quick stay over in Yuma, Arizona, en route to San Diego, California, where I will be performing a show at the American Legion in Encinitas, California, which is right down there in the San Diego area, and very much looking forward to the show. My good comedian friend Andrew Norelli books the show and has booked me on it before. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited to do this show. I am looking forward to it for several reasons. First of all, I just love every time I have a show. I love it even more anytime that I have a show that is not sort of a regular show that I do, meaning like a regular venue or whatever, because it's just a chance to try out material in front of a different audience and a different demographic and, you know, a different venue, and it just gives you a chance to sort of spread your wings a little bit and to see how your material is playing in front of multiple audiences and different demographics, which is just so important as a stand-up comedian, because it can get a little comfortable when you're performing. Like for me, I have a regular performance spot at my home club there in Gilbert, Arizona, and I absolutely love performing there. But, when you're at the same club, you're going to get more or less the same sort of type of people based off of the demographic of the, and location of the comedy club itself. And that can cause you maybe to get a little comfortable, or, maybe think that the way that you're telling a joke is ubiquitous when maybe it's not. And so it's always good to, as much diversity as you can put your comedy in front of. Diversity on all of the spectrums, age range, racial range, political leanings. If you can make a joke kill in the middle of, a very blue metropolis, like, the middle of Los Angeles, and then go kill in Houston, Texas, well, then you're pretty darn sure that you've got a really good bit. But it can happen that comedians will get very comfortable just doing sort of the same type of material in front of the same type of audience, and it's it can be difficult. It can be difficult to expand beyond the certain type of audience that you're used to performing for. So even though demographically, being in San Diego is probably not going to be that much diverse from Gilbert, it's probably going to be predominantly white, and probably a little bit of an older demographic. It is the American Legion, so it's going to be military people who tend to, now I'm just speaking in generalities, tend to lean a little bit more right than left. I'm not getting into any sort of political persuasion. I'm just stating that as an observation. But, it's going to be a San Diego crowd versus a Arizona crowd, and, a more predominantly military crowd. Although the crowd in Gilbert does seem to have a lot of military, but I don't know. It's still different. It's a different venue. It's a different layout. People are coming with a different expectation. And I'm looking forward to it. So that's one reason, is, again, just an opportunity to try out this new material in front of a new type of crowd. The second thing that I'm excited about is getting to perform in front of my comedian friend Andrew Norelli, who's a stand-up comedian who I have the absolute utmost respect and admiration for him as a comedian and as a friend. He's been a really good close friend of mine for a good 3 or 4 years. And he was actually largely influential in my decision to rewrite my whole act from the ground up. And he helped me, and I actually paid him to comb over my jokes and make recommendations and give me his wisdom on how to really transform my stand-up comedy from being a good sort of middle act, a decent feature act, to really starting to get an act that is so solid that I could headline for an hour across the country and just be able to slay on whatever stage I find myself in. And that has been my objective. However, I haven't really had a chance to perform with him since I have made that adjustment. So it'll be kind of fun and maybe a little scary to perform my new material, assuming he's paying attention, to be quite honest. A lot of times, us comics, we don't actually listen to the other comics. Sometimes we do. A lot of times we don't, for several reasons. First of all, as stand-up comedians, we have just heard so much stand-up comedy. You have no idea how many stand-up comedy routines I have heard in my lifetime. I mean, probably in the thousands. I mean, when I was in LA, in 2019, I did 400 sets. Now, most of those sets were open mics, like 5-minute open mics. 5-minute open mic sets, right? But in each one of those open mics, I would be listening to 7 or 8 other comics also do 5 minutes. Which means let's just assume, although part of that 400 was me also doing regular sets, and I headlined a couple times where I did 45 minutes to where I wouldn't, there was maybe only one other comic on the lineup. Let's just say, even if it was an average of 5 other comedians on all 400 of those sets, that's 2,000 comedy sets that I heard in 2019 alone. And that doesn't include the comedy festivals that I went to. Sometimes in a comedy festival, I would attend 3 or 4 shows, all with anywhere from 8 to 10 comics. I would do these showcases where it would be 20 comics all doing 3 minutes. I would do open mics that had a lot more than 8 or 9 comics. I would do open mics I did an open mic at the Hollywood Improv, probably heard 30 comics. So I heard 30 different sets that night alone. So, and that doesn't include me listening for hours and hours to all the comics that I'm a big fan of. Like Bill Burr, I've probably heard, I've heard every stand-up comedy special he's done. I think he has 5 or 6 one-hour comedy specials. I've listened to every one of his comedy specials. A couple of his comedy specials I've listened to more than once. And there's a couple comics like that. There's Mike Birbiglia. I've listened to all of his specials definitely more than once. There's Dave Chappelle. We're talking Seinfeld. We're talking Sarah Silverman. We're talking, Brian Regan, John Mulaney, Louis C.K. My gosh, over the years, Eliza Schlesinger, Amy Schumer, Taylor Tomlinson, Drew Lynch. I mean, this is just off the Chrome Dome. How many comedy shows I've been to? My gosh. I've been to the Comedy Store so many times. I was just at the Comedy Store a couple weeks ago when I was in LA with my buddy Jim, and we just sat in the original room where it's 3-minute sets, and we probably heard 15 comics in that room, and then we snuck into the main stage and we heard Marcelo Hernandez, I think is his name. He's an actor on SNL. Anyway, all that is just me saying I have heard so much stand-up comedy in my life. Thousands and thousands and thousands of comedy routines, equaling tens of thousands of hours probably. So when I'm at a comedy show and I'm performing and I don't absolutely have to listen to the comedian on stage, there's a good chance I may be in the green room checked out, unless there's a real good reason that I want to listen. Sometimes if there's a comedian on the lineup that I know who I think is really, really funny and I just love listening to their stand-up, then I'll go listen. For example, Andrew Norelli. If I'm doing a show with Andrew Norelli, I want to hear his stand-up. A couple weeks ago, I did a show at JP's, and his headliner was a gentleman named Tom Clark, who's been a good friend of mine. Not a good friend. He's a friend of mine who I've known for probably 10 years. And I've always loved his comedy, and so when he was headlining, I snuck in the back of the room and checked out his set. But there have been plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know who this comic is, or I don't care who this comic is, or I've already heard this comic's routine a dozen times because I perform with them all the time. I'm going to go ahead and check out and not pay attention. So there's a good chance that maybe Andrew will not pay attention to my set. That's what that little tangent was just meant to convey. But if he does listen, it'll be exciting to see if he hears the improvement in my material from just a short time ago. So very much looking forward to that. I'm going to do that show in San Diego, and then I literally will turn around and drive right back to Yuma that night, because I have to be back in Arizona for Thursday night. Thursday night, I will be performing again at JP's, but I will be doing improvisational comedy with a brand new troupe, which we just kind of threw together. It's not really an official troupe. It's just like a group of improvisers who reached out to me and just asked if I wanted to come do an improv show. And I said, heck yes, I would. I love doing improv, and I have been improv homeless for about the last 4 or 5 months. And so I was very excited that somebody reached out, said, hey, we're going to do an improv show. Why don't you come perform with us? So that'll be Thursday night. Then Friday night, I'll be doing stand-up again in Gilbert. And then I need to hop right back on the road and then drive to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I will be at the beach at a little networking meeting on Saturday, and then I have a show Saturday night, and then I will most likely hop right back on the road and drive probably halfway back to Phoenix, because I have an open mic on Sunday that I need to be at. So it is going to be a very busy handful of days with a lot of travel. And while, still working and just hustling and grinding, my friends, but loving every minute of it. So with that, let's now move on to the second half of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast show, where I talk about the 48 Laws of Power, which is a book that I have been listening to and have been quite bothered by So anyway, the next law of power that the book talks about says something along the lines of, if you need to ask for help, appeal to people's own self-interest, not to... I'm missing one of the other elements, but one of them was gratitude, not based off of gratitude, or maybe it was like mercy or something like that. I don't think mercy doesn't sound right. Anyway, you all can Google whatever that chapter of the law of power is. But in essence, what it's saying is that if you actually do need to help, ask help from somebody, trying to do so by indicating that they should be helpful to you out of a sense of gratitude for something that you have done for them, that is an ineffective law of power. So an example would be, my car breaks down, I call a buddy, and they come and, change a tire and, hook me up and send me on my merry way. And then, a couple of weeks go by, and then they need a favor for me. They they want me to dog sit. And so they call me up and say, hey, I need you to dog sit. Would you do this as a favor? Because you should be grateful for the fact that I helped you when your car was broken down. And then, of course, the book gives horrific examples about how that strategy, led to people getting murdered and thrown in jail. It's like every story is some king or some prince exercising some extreme measure of retribution against anybody who did not follow these laws of power, or how anybody who obtained their power did so by exercising these laws, which usually included manipulating and murdering and plundering and slaying a bunch of people. So, although I fully acknowledge that world exists, that is not the world that I choose to live in, as much as I am able to choose my environment, my circumstances, and the people I associate with. I'm definitely able to choose how I believe and how I act and how I feel. And sure, there are things out of my control, and, maybe some country will try to invade San Diego tomorrow, at which point I will need to, exercise these laws of power to try to overthrow our invading forces. But barring that, I feel that there is a better way to live life, still get what it is that we are seeking, but to be able to obtain what we are seeking in a manner that does not require reducing every human interaction down to a enemy or future enemy, context. So even in this example, like if you need to ask for help, try to appeal to the person's own self-interest. Like, hey, I need help. My car broke down. Will you come help me? And what I'll do is I'll take a bunch of pictures of you helping me and then post it on Instagram so everybody sees what a good person you are. Like that's kind of what it's insinuating is, you want to appeal to the person's vanity or their own vain ambitions, to, in essence, manipulate them into doing or helping you out in whatever manner you're seeking. Which, okay, fair enough. I would like to think that anybody who I would ask to help would come and help me, because our friendship and relationship is reciprocal, and they know full well that if they were to ask me for something, I would be there, and it's not because we are trying to one-up each other. It's because we just genuinely care. And that's how you build lasting relationships. And in fact, if somebody tried to pull some sort of higher morality chip on me, saying, oh, I need your help and you should help me because I did that thing for you. And, I that's probably not a friend that I would consider myself close to. And if I did, that sort of behavior would probably make me rethink that friendship. Because, I just don't operate on a, you scratch mine and I'll scratch yours. I do operate on a, hey, if while your hands happen to be moving in a up and down scratching motion, and it so happens that your scratching motion actually is in alignment with my back that itches, and then when you turn around, your back happens to be in alignment. I really hate this analogy, but it's, it's the analogy that is coming to mind as I'm speaking it. But you get the idea. It's, I don't know. I'm just way big on reciprocity. Like, hey, I can do this thing for you, and you can do this thing for me. That's a great alignment, but it's not an obligation, and it's not a manipulation. It's like my buddy Josh. It's a great partnership that he happens to be a really funny stand-up comedian who's been in the business for a very long time and has been very successful and has a lot of connections in the industry. That's a great partner to have. And he is resourceful and he is funny and we get along great. And so it's not like there isn't a mutual sharing of resources. And at the same time, I'm also a stand-up comedian. I'm an improviser and I can play the piano and I can do marketing and set up websites. And, I understand business more or less. And it's like we have a reciprocal partnership that is not contingent upon any sort of manipulative, I need to approach him in a certain way in order to acquire resource from him that he otherwise would not be willing to part with genuinely. Again, maybe I'm just naive and lived a sheltered life, and that is a fair argument. And quite frankly, I am grateful that that is the case because I find the relationships that have manifested in my life to be incredibly fulfilling and provide tremendous meaning. I remember when I got out of a tough relationship a couple years ago, it was one of the worst moments of my life. And I called so many friends of mine and family of mine who just rushed to my aid and were calling me on the phone and were texting me and, wanted to go to dinner and wanted to go to lunch and, and hear what happened and provide support and provide wisdom and love. And I would do the same for them in a heartbeat. And it's not like when I called them, I was going, oh, okay, I'm really struggling. I should call this person and then remind them how helping me out is going to be in their own best self-interest. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. So that's the law of power, though. Hey, if power is what you're going for and you want to go about it that way, then I say more power to you. But that is not the law or principle that I am choosing to operate on. So that's the interesting thing about laws is there's quite a few of them. And I don't know. Maybe not all of them are laws. Maybe some of them are just a context or a paradigm through which to view and operate in the world. And based off of those parameters, you will obtain a certain outcome. And maybe that outcome is what you want, or maybe it's not. Or maybe if it is what you want, maybe it's only what you want for a time, because the same laws that you used to, in essence, power your way to the top will be the same laws that somebody else will use, and use them better to take you out from the top. So, but hey, everybody's got to figure out how to exist in this crazy world. All right, everybody. So I hope all of you are out there pursuing your dreams, finding happiness, finding joy, finding fulfillment, and that you are so fortunate to have beautiful people in your life who love you and support you. And if you don't, I support you in as much as I can as a faceless voice coming out of your speakers. All right, everybody, that is all for today. That is July 16th, 2024, episode 220 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.